In today's very windy video, once again we'll be looking at the topic of racism, and as a middle-aged white guy I have to be careful. Of course, all racism is utterly vile. No one gets to pick the colour of their skin, so no one should be judged on it, apart from certain women from Cheshire and parts of Essex who were born white, and once they hit their teenage years they gradually go a bright orange. Last week I brought out a video called Desperately Seeking Racism, and in that I mentioned the only type of acceptable racism, at least to the woke progressive left. And that is what they would call, when they're not crying into The Guardian, reverse racism, but it's just anti-white racism. And allied to that is the idea of cultural appropriation. And the word culture is important because it's about culture, not really race. And this is the ridiculous notion that if you borrow something from someone else's culture, you are in fact stealing their culture. So why do I mention this? Well, over the weekend, a video went absolutely viral on X and TikTok.
The internet is hating on me for having braids, so today we're gonna get the public's thoughts. Do you think it's offensive if I wear my hair in braids?
No, I don't give a damn what color you can wear whatever you want to wear.
No. We wear wigs, don't we? No. It's cute.
I think it's okay for anybody to wear braids. It's your hair, really.
Do you think I'm allowed to
Now, as a bald man, it's hard to make a video about haircuts, but we can see there it's a white girl with braids. In my opinion, it's up to her. It's her fucking head. The notion that one culture could own a sodding haircut, it's ridiculous. But we also know that braided hair is most widely associated with people of Afro-Caribbean heritage, and there she's talking to African-American women, most of whom couldn't care less. Why on earth would they? It's her head. But then this happened, and this is when the video went viral.
That shit is ugly as f***. We wear that shit.
It's braids.
Take that shit out now.
Are you being for real?
Take that shit out now.
Okay, what's your problem?
Take that shit out now.
We're dressed in this room.
But take that shit out now. Take that shit out. That shit is ugly as fuck. That shit is ugly though. Like, I just look at your fucking hair.
It doesn't look bad.
That's ugly.
Please stop following us.
Foul-mouthed and aggressive. We, by which I think she means other black women, we do that shit. We do that shit. And that she goes off like that when clearly she knows she's on fucking camera. It shows just how widespread and ignored anti-white racism is. Like I said, the idea of cultural appropriation is utter bollocks. It is rancid arsewater. No one culture can claim ownership of a fucking haircut. Because we know that the Angles and the Saxons and the Picts and the Celts and the Vikings and even the ancient Egyptians all braided their hair. In the modern world, there are hairstyles such as French plaits and Dutch braids. But if our angry new friend really wants to get into it and claim that is her hairstyle, then we need to find out who were the first people to braid their hair. So I undertook some extensive research. I went on Google. Other search engines are available, but they're mostly shit. Microsoft Edge takes a fucking age to load. And I discovered, that's probably too big of a word, the earliest example of humans braiding their hair is from 30,000 years ago. And maybe you're wondering, what part of Africa did that take place? Well, it wasn't in Africa at all. It was right in the middle of Europe. Modern day Austria. Now, given that the most famous Austrian of all time, a painter and corporal in the German army, a rather shouty chap with anger issues, he had very clear ideas when it came to racial purity. So if we're going to take this idea of cultural appropriation seriously, which we shouldn't, it could be argued then that anyone who isn't of European ancestry, meaning that anyone who isn't this colour, if they braid their hair, they are committing cultural appropriation and therefore they're being racist. It's bullshit, isn't it? However, the whole cultural appropriation thing could be gotten rid of overnight. If people of European ancestry, i.e. mostly white people, started playing the same fucking game. I'm about to use some very lazy tropes and stereotypes, but if we think of the angry woman we've just seen, if I were to intervene in that, I would say, "Excuse me, madam, you appear to be speaking English. Now, if you're of African heritage, that is cultural appropriation. Henceforth, I want you to communicate with a series of clicks and whistles. Also, is your house made of bricks? Because if it is, that's cultural appropriation as well. We're going to have to knock it down, and from now on, you can live in a mud hut with no electricity or running water. In fact, famously, every day you'll have to walk 5 miles for a bucket of water. I see those adverts and think, why don't they just move next to the fucking river? Then I would also say to the woman, if you have a car, that has to go as well. European invention. And the worst thing is, if you get sick, you can't have antibiotics. Moving forward, you have to look for a bloke in a loincloth with a rattle and a bone through his nose. The radio, the telephone, the television, the aeroplane, the helicopter. So many things were invented either by Europeans or people of European ancestry. Even the fucking roads. The Romans built them, then centuries later some Scottish chap came up with Tarmacadam and we're going to be Irish to do the tarmacking. But those previous clips were in the USA. Now I've got one from right here in the UK.
English people, you have to understand something very clearly and very quickly. All of the hate, all of the division, all of the toxicity you have put out into the world throughout the British Empire, that is what is coming back to you. It was not us who had this energy. It was you. It was not our burden to carry. It was yours. This is why it feels like everything is crumbling around you. Everything is crashing down on you. Because the energy you put out there, we are giving it back. Take it. It belongs to you. It doesn't belong to us.
She starts off by addressing English people. Has she not heard her own accent? Love, you have an English accent. You're from here. If you check your passport, on the front it will say Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Of course, when she says British people, she means white people. It's more lazy anti-white racism. And so many people talk about the British Empire. But they never mention the French Empire, or the Spanish Empire, or the Portuguese Empire, or the German Empire, which tried to expand too quickly that led to the First World War, and then the Second World War. Nor do people mention it was the British Empire that ended the transatlantic fucking slave trade. From 1808 to 1860, the Royal Navy had ships off the coast of Africa to intercept slavers. They stopped 1,600 ships and freed 150,000 African slaves. I know so much random shit. Of course, the British Empire did do a lot of really terrible things, but that's just the history of humanity. One group of people being terrible to another group of people. But I would argue that the Empire did a lot more good than bad. Rocking up in very primitive countries, bringing education, law and order, modern medicine, the railways, roads, etc., etc. And let's play devil's advocate here. Also, importantly, the British Empire stopped the locals from hacking each other to death. They used muskets and did it themselves. Let's play devil's advocate. I'm assuming that young lady's probably grandparents came over from the Caribbean in the 1950s and 1960s. If Britain is such a terrible place, and yes, it was racist, to an extent it still is. We're seeing people being racist on this. It's just the racists aren't the same colour as me. If Britain was that fucking terrible, why didn't they just go home? And if that woman hates it so much here, for the bad energy that the English people have given out, why didn't she move to another country and apply for citizenship? Because she's on benefits! I am fascinated to know what energy it is that us English are giving out. It can't be much, otherwise we'd have been taxed on it by now. But let's be adults about it. She's a black woman, I'm a white man. I have not owned any slaves, she has not picked any cotton, why can't she fucking let it go? My assumption is, though, she needs to blame someone because if she can blame someone else for her problems, she doesn't have to take personal responsibility. And that reminds me, I think it was last week, I was on X and there was a post written that said, all of my life's problems have been caused by white people. And it took so much for me not to reply to it. Because being the sarcastic bastard that I am, I wanted to type, yes, I was at the white person meeting and your name came up. And we decided to make your life miserable so you don't have to take any responsibility for any of your actions. Cultural appropriation is absolute bullshit, although I'm off to the barber to see if I can get braids put in this. Anyway, that's the end of this video, a rather angry video. If you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you can leave a like rating and a comment, that helps the channel to grow. If you want to support me making these videos, there's a link in the description to buy me a coffee, and thank you to everyone who's already done that. I will say from some of the donations I've got from Americans, coffee must be fucking expensive stateside. Thank you all so much, and as ever, Thanks for watching. We'll be returning to the subject of racism, and as a white guy, I have to be careful the way that I word this, because I'll turn the fucking wind off. So, there's a white girl with braids. In my opinion, she can do what she likes. It's her hair. No one else owns it. Yet, if they're like, oh, fuck it. I'm curious to know what energy it is us Brits are giving out. I'm surprised we haven't been taxed on it as yet. There's a whole thing about South Africa I could do in that. Let's do it quickly. Put it in the bloopers. At the fall of the apartheid regime, which was fucking terrible in South Africa then started having power cuts because all the white Boerpig racialists, they were removed from their jobs at the power stations and they've given to black South Africans. The problem being that if you have a group of people who've been treated like cattle and have never been formally educated, they don't know how to run power stations. That's the end of this. No, fuck it. You can shut up as well with your fucking drill. Anyway, that's the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe if you haven't. Fuck it.